Let's see how we can get the bugs from the server and put them in the store. So here in index.js, we're dispatching this action to get the bugs from the server. Now, if you look at Redux DevTools, you can see 3 actions. The first 2 indicate a successful API call. And then we have this action, bugs received. Look at the payload of this action. Here are the bugs that we got from the server. Beautiful. Now, look at the diff tab. There are no changes in the store because currently we don't have a reducer that knows how to handle this type of action. So we need to implement this in the bug slice. So here in the bug slice, let's implement a new reducer. Bugs received. We're going to map this to a function with 2 parameters, bugs and action. Now, we know that action.payload contains the bugs that we got from the server. So we get this array of bugs and assign them to bugs.list. As simple as that. There is a problem here though. You know that when we implement our reducers using Redux Toolkit, the name of this action is actually going to be bugs/bugs received. So it's going to be namespaced, okay? So now we need to go back to index.js and change the name of this action. Now let's test our implementation. So here's the last action. The diff tab shows what is changed in the store. So entities, bugs, list. And now we have an array of bugs. Beautiful. Now back to index.js. There is a problem with this implementation. Well, there are actually a couple of problems. The first problem is the details that we have included here. We don't want to include these details in our UI layer. So let's say here we are in the boundary of a React or an Angular app. In our UI layer, we don't want to know what endpoint we should call and what action we should dispatch on success. These are too detailed for the UI layer to know. What if you want to display the list of bugs in 2 different parts of our application? Let's say we want to have a page for displaying the list of bugs, and somewhere else we're going to have a drop-down list for the user to select a bug. With this structure, we have to repeat these details in 2 different places. And if we want to change any of these details, we have to change multiple places in our code base. What if this endpoint changes in the future? Or what if the name of this action changes? These are the reasons why we should not have such details in our UI layer. So in our UI layer, ideally we should be able to dispatch an action like this, load bugs. That's it. What endpoint we call or what action we dispatch is irrelevant. So we simply dispatch this action and our store becomes hydrated with the data from the server. As simple as that. So now we need to create an action creator called load bugs that would encapsulate this logic. So we go to our bug slice. After our reducers, in this slice, we're going to create our action creators. Now, once again, if you don't like this structure, if you prefer to have multiple files like reducer, selectors, action creators, that's perfectly fine. But later I will show you why I prefer a single file approach. For now, let's just create an action creator called load bugs. Now, back in index.js, so here we're calling this action creator, API call begin, to get an action object. So we can call this function directly over here. First, let's import it on the top. So import API call begin from the API module in the current folder. Now, here we call API call begin, and then we need to pass our payload object. So I'm going to copy that from index.js. That is this object over here. Cut, and then paste it over here. Now, in this slice, it is perfectly fine to know what endpoint we should call because this slice should have intimate knowledge of how we're going to get the data from the server. Now, in a real application, we don't want to hard code this endpoint over here. Potentially, this could be in a configuration file. But for now, let's define it as a constant called URL because we could have multiple action creators that need to reference this endpoint. We don't want to repeat this string in multiple places, okay? So now we can simplify this code. Also, we don't want to hard code this string. We want to get the type of this action from our reducer on the top. So Earlier, we defined these constants. We're using object destructuring to get these from slice.actions. Now we can add our new reducer, bugs received. Save the changes. So these are the properties that we are picking from slice.actions. And then we can use our constant, bugs received. Now, as you know, this is a function, so we should access its type property. Now, if you don't like to extract, you can simply type slice.actions.bugsReceived.type. That's another approach. Now, let's simplify this code, okay? So we're done with this action creator. Now, let's use it in index.js. So I'm going to import it on the top, import, load bugs from store/bugs, and then we can use it over here. Now, we don't have to make an API call over here, so delete. And that means we don't need to import these actions from the API module either. Good. So here's the final result. Let's test our implementation. So here we have 3 actions. Let's look at the state. So our list of bugs is successfully populated from the server. Beautiful.